So there you go. In the House, it's Dennis DeBar Jr. Good morning, sir, Mr. Chairman of Education in the Senate. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
It's good to have you, sir.
Glad to be here.
How's everything going home counties out there in your District 43?
It's going well.
People getting back to work? Need you to get in the front of the microphone a little bit.
People are doing well. They're going back to work. Some of our COVID numbers are rising, unfortunately, but other than that, we're doing fine.
You think it has to do with more testing or just people getting out and about?
I think it's a combination of both.
I do too. And the good news on that, we're going to reach that herd immunity somewhere down the road, but
at some point,
I'm not sure exactly what it is. When you listen to the good people like Dr. Dobbs, he's talking about a very small percentage of people in the state who have gotten it so far. When you start looking at that immunity, so. First question is, what do you think? How long are you going to be there? Is the buzz on the floor that you'll check out on maybe Thursday or Friday?
Friday, maybe.
Friday, maybe.
Maybe. It keeps changing. I think we'll go home.
Is that right?
We finally go home, to be honest with you. I just know Sunny Day is October 10th. That's about all I can tell you at this point.
Well, so you guys got to be back one way or the other.
I believe so, yes.
So what's your overall view as chairman of education, your first year, in this 4-year term? So far, how do we look?
So far, I think, except for the break we had in March for COVID and so forth, I think things were going well. We came in, we were, I wouldn't say flush with money, but we had some priorities we were going to do, teacher pay raise and things of that nature, and we got our priorities there in order, and I think all but the teacher pay raise is going to survive this session.
Yeah.
Everything from the teacher licensure revisions, where we can get more teachers into our classroom. The ESA bill, the bill for that was a big controversial issue that really didn't turn out to be as controversial as we thought this year. So our children with special needs are going to get that program. That's still going to be alive. It's on the governor's desk now. I expect him to sign it. I've heard nothing otherwise. And then the last thing we just did was the COVID bill, the CARES Act bill.
Yep.
We're directing about $150 million, hopefully, for distance learning to get to our schools and to buy hard devices.
Where's that bill now?
The bill we passed on the Senate. It's sent to the House.
Does your bill have it okay for public and private schools or parochial schools?
It just has the public schools.
It just has public schools.
Has public schools.
Why is that?
That's kind of the way we looked at it initially. It's kind of after the fact. It talked about private schools being brought up.
That's what Nancy Loom wanted.
Is it? I haven't talked to Nancy about the bill.
And the parents' campaign.
So,
in other words, no money can go to a private school or a parochial school as far as those dollars.
That money, as the bill stands now, it's just for public schools.
Legislative leaders on Monday said Mississippi State's budget for the coming year should be able to limp along with the cuts to agencies of less than 5%, despite the pandemic-fueled recession. The estimated shortfall for fiscal 2021 is about $275 million, which is, on the brighter note, thank God we were in good condition.
Well, that's correct. The things we've done over the last 8 years with a rainy day fund, getting that fully funded, and just being fiscally conservative. We were up, a couple $100 million, I think, when we left in March, and now we're down maybe $50 million or so, maybe a little bit more. And so it's bad. I'm not going to say it's not, but it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Earlier projections had been more dire, with double-digit cuts to state agencies in the offing. Earlier projections had been a massive shortfall. We were looking at, and I heard people on the air here talking about possibility of $800 million or more. And I mean, we were early on in this thing wondering how the hell are we going to dig out of this thing? Right. $800 million or more, so $275 million sounds pretty good.
It's that's not too bad.
Budget experts told lawmakers yesterday the pandemic recession so far hasn't been as bad as once feared, and retail sales, income, and corporate taxes have not tanked as sharply as first projected. Bottom line is the national economy appears to be recovering. The state economy is also improving, and those are the words of the state economist Darren Webb, and that's good to hear.
Well, the thing that's concerning is if this comes back in the fall and then things are being shut down again, what is that going to do to our economy? My biggest fear is if we don't get this distance learning bill passed and these children don't have their devices or their hotspots, are we going to be in the same position we were in March? And I don't want that to happen, so that's kind of where we're pushing this through.
It does, and we have so many people here who ask this question about the forces played in the House and Senate, and the Senate has, or the House has this bill. What's the bill number on that? Special funds, not special funds, but the distance learning?
It's Senate Bill 3044.
Senate Bill 3044?
Correct. Now, the House has their own version, I believe. I talked to Chairman Bennett about that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but I think they're bringing it out today or tomorrow.
You think they're going to change it at all? Or
I think there's some differences there, but I don't think they're so far apart that we can't compromise and come together one.
If you have students, for one reason or the other, that are in private or parochial schools in the state of Mississippi, they have the same needs as far as distance learning. Why would they, and they are taxpayers, why would they be omitted from that?
Well, it's just something we made a policy decision on initially. I know.
Well, I mean, that's to the people who are asking me. That doesn't sound like a good question or a good answer.
Well, that's just the way we drafted the bill initially, and it may be something we change. I'm not saying it won't, but initially we felt we apportion the money out based on average daily attendance, which is the way money is apportioned through MAEP. Private schools don't get MAEP money, so therefore that's why they weren't included initially.
I know that was a big push for Nancy Loom and the parents' campaign not to make sure the private or parochial schools didn't get any money. Apparently, their wishes have come true. I want to ask you about some of the other bills you have that are still alive in the Senate, and I guess all of them have been transferred now to the House.
Correct.
All right, we'll do that more with Dennis DeBar. We'll be back live on a Tuesday with rain in the forecast, sand, dust in the forecast. From the Trustmark Studios, for simple checking accounts to complex loans and services, it's all there from our friends at trustmark.com/business. And in the Trustmark Studios is Dennis Debar Jr., Mississippi Senator, District 43, Chair of Education. And we were talking about a number of things on and off the air, but let's go over to the Shad White interview I had yesterday and his auditor's report that in 2006, before you joined the legislature, a bill was passed that would mandate that the Department of Education increase the graduation rates. And after that, apparently, it's not been done. Have you had a look, taken a look at the auditor's report?
I've looked through that report. I've looked through the Department of Education's response to that. Mm-hmm. There may be some issues there. I just have not had a chance to do a deep dive into that yet with everything else that's going on. But it's undeniable the fact that, like that this morning, for example, I saw a report that we are now 39th in the nation, mm-hmm. according to the Casey Foundation, which is up 5 spots from last year, between the fourth grading reading levels, graduation rates. I know that was an issue with Shad and so forth, but there is no doubt that there has been significant improvement in education. Whether there was following the dropout, prevention, I don't know. That's something I'm still looking into. But graduation rates were based on the Casey Foundation's recommendation. But there's no doubt we have improved significantly in the last 8 years.
I guess what I'm saying is when the federal government gives us these ratings and we have the final analysis where we are they based on what the MDE sends in? So if what they sent in was in error, then the whole thing changes. From according to State Auditor Shad White, we are doing better, but it's probably 9 or 10 points less than was projected.
I'm not sure if it's 9 or 10 points, but less than projected. Mm-hmm. It's still something we're looking into, and I don't want to prejudge it yet without having all the information in front of me.
Have you been called into this? Have you talked to the state auditor about this?
I've not. Well, briefly I have. Yes.
What's on the schedule to maybe correct it? You either have to do something in the legislature through your committee and the committee in the House, I would think.
Correct. I mean,
to either do away with this, do
away with it, or actually make them follow the procedures that's set in place.
Is this the first you've heard of this?
It was last week, yes. When the report came out was when I found out about it.
You talked to the Department of Education and Dr. Wright?
Briefly, yes.
And the conversation there was, as far as solving the situation, what?
Well, it was just in the response they had put out and just some information that I received from the department.
So we leave it at that, and it's something to be corrected?
It's something that we're going to look at. I'm not going to let it go, but we have winding down here. We're just trying to get everything ready to go. And I don't want to prejudge it. I know the department wants to submit more information to me, and I'm going to read Chad's report again. So.
Dennis Debar, Dennis, what has transpired since COVID as far as the Department of Education and you guys in the House and Senate looking at this and the entire attention kind of moving toward what can we do now as far as distant learning? Because it's been a whole new ballgame.
Well, distance learning, I mean, it definitely opens up a lot of possibilities, opened eyes to a lot of folks as far as, distance learning for education, telehealth, people just not having to come to work and working from home from now. So that's the big push for this distance learning bill of ours, is to make sure every child K through 12 has got a device. And then if the schools have devices for their children, then they can go buy hotspots, whether it be a MiFi or on a bus or a fixed wireless antenna at the school. And this is going to work in concert with Senator Carter's bill that came out of Energy yesterday, where more hotspots and broadband and things of that nature can be utilized by the schools. And I want to go back to the public-private schools. Private schools are not regulated. There's by the state. We don't fund private schools. They have no accountability. And so kids that go to JA or prep, they're issued laptops or iPads when they go to these schools. So even if we did just wanted to give private schools money, are they going to fall under their state regulations? Are they going to be follow our accountability models? I don't think so. That's why they're private schools. They don't want to be a part of the public school program. So at this point, I'm not really inclined to give private schools money because they're a separate entity.
Is that inclusive of charter schools?
They're public schools. They're public charter schools. Okay. They are included.
I do have from the C-Spire text line to ask you if you're going to support the bill that addresses liability. Judd A. is meeting this morning, and they're supposed to bring that bill out to protect businesses and healthcare providers. And I know that you're on that committee.
Yes,
so what's your thoughts on that?
I've talked to Chairman Doty about that. I'm definitely going to support that. I haven't seen the bill yet, but it does, according to Chairman Doty, include some liability protections for schools and school districts as well. And so that's very important for me as education chairman to make sure that's in there as well.
This is pertaining to the COVID-19 for the most part.
Yes.
Well, because if somebody shows up at work or something and they get it, then there's a lawsuit there. This whole thing is kind of crazy as far as COVID's concerned, and I'm not going to say it brings it back to the old tort reform days, but it's almost like using a crisis to further, and you're an attorney, so to further the industry a little bit, because the Democrats in Washington wanted to do away with that liability protection for policemen are concerned. Can you imagine anybody becoming a policeman without that immunity in there?
No. I'm former law enforcement, and there's no way. Well, I wouldn't say there's no way, but I'd be very hard pressed to.
Well, you could sue, get a lawyer for just stopping you and asking you a question.
It seems to be getting that way. It's just getting. I see the things going on around our country, and I never in a million years would have thought that this would happen here. And I'm glad, at least in Mississippi, we can have a civil debate about things and not become like Seattle.
Everything except the flag. So, where do you stand on that?
Well, the people deserve a right to speak on that, and that's why I think we need to have a vote on that. Mm-hmm. We can have it in November. I think the votes in the Senate are there for that. I'm not going to speak for any other senator, but I'd like to see it on the ballot come November.
Back to the situation of distance learning. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is an interesting story. Elon Musk, SpaceX, in partnership with something called Starlink. Have you been updated on that?
I haven't. Not in the last week or so, but I've heard about it, yes.
Starlink is recruiting users to test this technology, and I wish we could be a part of that in the state of Mississippi to bring high-speed internet to space by 2021. Let me just read a little bit. Starlink says, with performance that far surpasses that of traditional satellite internet and a global network unbounded by ground infrastructure limitations, it will deliver high-speed broadband internet to locations where access has been unreliable, expensive, and completely unavailable. Starlink is targeting service in northern U.S. and Canada in 2020, rapidly expanding to near global coverage by 2021. They send up a multitude of these small satellites that, when they are useless, they decompose or something. But and I think each one of these satellites weigh about 574 pounds, and they have sensors and everything on them to make sure they stay in the right geo.
Right. I've learned more about technology in the last 3 months than I had my daughter fix my phone for me, so that's how incompetent I was. But
well, do you think we'll get there though? As far as, and then that's a whole new ball game because the landline, laying fiber, and everything else will be negated by that.
I think that's a game changer. That's something I've talked to Senator Carter about actually. Is that and how we can utilize that in education. And if that can happen, that would be fantastic, not only for education, but just rural areas, in itself.
Well, with the amount of money we have now coming in from this, it has to be utilized in the right manner.
And it has to be spent by the end of the year as well.
That's another thing, and that's a rather... how do you do that? Can you put that in just earmark it for something and have some flexibility?
Correct. Well, like the distance learning bill, they have to spend their money by October 1st and if it's not, then by November 1st, it reverts back to the Department of Education. That way they can spend it on COVID activities.
What's on tap for today?
Today we have the Judd A meeting. We go in, and pretty much everything's in conference. So it's just working out the appropriation bills and general bills that are remaining.
The next deadline is, since this is Tuesday, if you guys got to get out on Friday, if it's possible.
Conference reports have to be probably filed today or tomorrow.
Always good seeing you, sir.
Glad to be here.
Dennis Debar, Jr., Mississippi Senator, District 43, Chairman of Education. We got more coming. We got to do an addendum here because there was a couple of things. One other thing I did not ask the education chair, and I didn't want to let him out of the studio and escape through the green room without asking him. Would you explain exactly what happened with this Nancy Collins thing?
Well, she came before the committee last Thursday, and after listening to her, I gave an opportunity to talk about her qualifications and experience and why she wanted to be on the board. And I think a few questions were asked, and after that, then a motion to table the nomination was made, and a voice vote. The motion carried, and so her nomination did not pass.
But are you telling me it was based on the interview itself, or it was based on the appointment done by the governor, who was lieutenant governor?
Well, like you said, the appointment was made by Lieutenant Governor Reeves at the time. I think in January of this year is when the letter I received, and then I can't speak to why each senator did what they did or voted how they voted, but I think Nancy is a very nice person, very intelligent. Just to me, it didn't seem like she came across as a good fit to be on this board. And
she's been serving there for since January.
Since January.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hosemann, now has to make that appointment or that nominee.
Correct. He has to make that appointment.
The Senate has yet to confirm Burl Cain.
No, that's been done.
Oh, that has been done.
That's been done.
Okay, I was out last week.
I think it was done last week.
I missed it.
It was done last week.
I missed it. So we got them both confirmed. Sean Tyndall yesterday.
Yeah.
All right.
After some much debate, Commissioner Tyndall did pass the Senate. So
much debate.
Much debate. Well, we got to take the former senator, so we.
So you had to go. There were some nebulous things in the background, only when he was serving in the Senate, huh? So, well, look, I thank you so very much, and I appreciate you sticking around for that. But again, you guys gavel in coming up at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
This morning. I do want to mention this, that we do have an election going on today. The Republican primary on who's going to challenge Representative Benny Thompson in November, plus voters in Jones and Jasper counties are going to choose their new state representative. After Ramonda Blackledge resigned in January, the polls are open as we speak, have been open for about 57 minutes, and they close at 7 o'clock tonight. And any voter in line at 7 o'clock will be entitled to cast a ballot. So just be careful. Make sure you wear your mask and do all of those necessary things. District 2 runoff in March. The primary, GOP primary, Brian Flowers and Thomas Carey both advanced to the District 2 GOP congressional runoff, eliminating B.C. Hammond. So there was a three-way, a Sunflower County soybean farmer. So the race today, the election today will be between Mr. Flowers and Mr. Carey, and whoever wins will go against Benny Thompson, longtime congressman and our only Democrat representative in Congress. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very, very much. That's Dennis DeBar. Thank you, sir. Greg Snowden's coming in he's on the phone, 8:05.